Here we go. Feet hip distance apart and parallel. Ground down from the core of the pelvis, push down into your feet. So starting, standing, feeling the earth. Seamus is here, ready to go. Find that lift up through the sides of your waist, lift up through the crown of the head, and then ground back down again. So we have that energetic split anywhere right from about the pubic bone, one part grounding, one part rising, or from the diaphragm, one can ground down from there. That's where the psoas muscle starts, so it's totally fair game and often quite comfortable to ground down from the base of the rib cage and then lift up the sides of the ribs. Every once in a while, it's nice to try grounding down from the heart, down through the roots into the earth and lifting up from the heart. So you'll find different places for that energetic split on different days at different times. Just exploring, feeling what it is to extend out of those places. It can open up, free up some channels, free up some energy in ways that you didn't really recognize were stuck. Okay, so you found your feet on the earth. Big inhale, stretch up to the sky, look up. Exhale, hands to your sides. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, hands to your sides. Again, inhale. And exhale. Keeping that grounding through your feet. Feel your feet. And exhale. One more time. Big inhale. And exhale. And then we'll bow forward. Inhale. Exhale to bow. Inhale, extend your tail, extend your head, look up. Exhale, round. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, hands to your sides. Keep that lift through the chest. Inhale, grounding through the feet. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, look up. Exhale to bow. Use these first few movements as a way of getting in touch. Inhale, all the way up. Exhale with the different parts of your body. Inhale, your feet, your legs, your hamstrings. Exhale to bow. I can tell, for example, I'm shying away from putting weight on my left leg, so I push a little more to that leg. Exhale to bow. Inhale, maybe for you it's reaching up through one arm or feeling some tension in the shoulders. Exhale, we'll do one more. So it's just a little conversation with your body, a little check-in. Exhale, no value judgment, right? Just inhale, look up, just feeling. Exhale, bow. Maybe a little response, but maybe not. Inhale, maybe things don't have to change. Exhale, it's just you noticing. Take your feet outer hip distance apart, still parallel. Interlace your hands behind your back, curl your shoulders back, and then bow forward. You could bend your knees just slightly. If that helps you gain access to tilting the pelvis. If you can really tilt your pelvis, meaning you can really hinge into a forward bend, counteract that by lifting through the abdominal muscles, right? Some people are very flexible and you'll actually kind of crunch off that space in the front of the hips. Lifting through the arms, big inhale, stretching through the shoulders, sides of the waist, and then push into your feet, come all the way up to stand, and exhale. Bring your feet together. Hug your legs into the midline, arms come up. We're going to hold on to the right wrist with the left hand, bending the elbows. And so I'm going to really keep that nice and easy through the shoulders and then just crescent over to the right. Lift up through the sides of your waist. So pushing into the feet. Again, find that energetic split. Today, for me, it's right around the navel, pressing down from there into the feet and lifting up through the sides of the waist out of there. Head is nice and easy. It's just following along. Take another big inhale here. Crescent over and then come all the way up. And we'll switch the grip. Just nice and loose through the neck and shoulders. Inhale, lifting tall. Exhale, crescent over. So there's not so much of a low back bend here. I think that's important to remember. I'm actually using my abdominal muscles to support my low back and lengthen. Almost like I'm creating traction through my low back by that grounding from the navel down and then lifting up through the sides of my waist and back up, and release your arms. Okay, nice easy kidney warm up. Take your feet outer shoulder distance apart, or outer hip distance apart. Bend your knees a little bit, and we're just going side to side. Just a nice easy warm up through the arms. And whapping your kidneys, the head just pivoting around the top. Shoulders loose. It's a great way to loosen up the shoulders. Check in with how tight they are. And get that waistline to move. The hips might follow a little bit. You're not really initiating with the hips, but it might be moving a little. And just a little bit more. Get the breath going. Back to center. Okay, so now we've got a little blood flow. We're going to come down and recenter ourselves on the ground. So from here, but we're going to do it through a squat. So from here, walk your feet just a little bit wider, turn your toes out just a little bit. So we're working on being able to squat. And that is a project, and some days it's easier than others, right? So bending the knees, coming down, working that ankle flexibility wherever you can. If you have to go off to one side or the other, that's fine. Just noticing, and then coming down to sit. Come onto your back, draw your knees into your chest, hug your knees in, rest your head back. Nice and easy. Relax your shoulders. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice this is the upside down version of child's pose, which we're going to go into in a moment. But what I want you to feel is your upper back, let it go into the floor. So stop trying to lift the upper back or the chest. Relax your shoulders. Again, eyes closed, face soft, just hugging the knees into the chest. Then we're going to rock ourselves up and over into child's pose. So you can try a few rocks just to warm up the spine. You'll let go of your knees and just rocking front to back a few times on the spine. And then we come up, landing, and come all the way over into extended child's pose. So I'll walk myself back, knees wide, toes together, arms stretched out, head down, and rest. And again, close your eyes. You can use your hands in this case to push your hips a little more back toward your heels. Nice, easy breath. Breathing in and out through your nose. Woke up the body a bit, so the breath should be more clear. Sometimes when we start in child's pose, very first thing, it's hard to clear the breath. We're breathing into that upper back. Feel that nice rounded upper back. There's no arch now. Take one more full breath. And then we'll walk our hands over to the right, so crescenting over. These side stretches are really actually important hip openers too. So I'm lifting my chest up over that right thigh, use that right hand to keep my hips grounded as I stretch through that left arm. A lot of hip tension, or I should say pelvis tension, is actually side waist tension or low back tension. So these side stretches are really important. It's like opening up the sides of an accordion so the front and back can breathe more easily. There's more space in between the two sides. Take a nice full breath into the sides of those ribs. And then back to center. So think of the pelvis as the mediation between the lower and upper body, right? So we're going over to the second side. But the pelvis is also the mediation between front and back. The psoas muscle is this big, strong hip flexor muscle that crosses the body from front to back, back to front. So if the sides of the body are tight, this major muscle that controls the tilt of the pelvis and the tilt of the low back and the position of the thigh bones is going to be affected. So we want to open up the sides of the body, get that freed up. See if we can start letting the psoas muscle do its proper thing. And then the hips will feel much better. Nice big full breath. And back to center. Good. Back to extended child's pose just for a few breaths. Stretch your hands out. Spread your fingers. Keep the creases of your wrist parallel with the front edge of the mat. Push down into your finger pads. Nice straight arms. And then tuck your toes, downward facing dog. So I think it's important to know that stretching in yoga is as much for tension release in the moment as it is for sort of virtuous benefit to the body. There actually isn't a ton of virtuous benefit to having a flexible body, right? Unless you're wanting to work in Cirque du Soleil, and then it is quite beneficial. But um, but really the benefit is the feeling in the moment. So really enjoy that feeling. It should actually feel enjoyable to stretch. Stretching the calves and downward facing dog. Let's go ahead and take that right leg up. But if it's not feeling good in the moment, there really is very little benefit to stretching. So just note that. There should be nothing punishing or unpleasant. Place your foot down about your yoga routine, really. Take your left leg up. It is meant to be really, truly an enjoyable, sort of sensual experience, meaning sensory, in the moment, enjoyable. And place that left leg down. And then we'll draw the right knee into the chest and step it forward into a lunge. Come up on your fingertips. Stretch through that back leg. Front shin is vertical. Front thigh is trying to be horizontal, parallel to the ground. Lift your back inner thigh up a bit, and then try to scoop your right hip toward your right heel. Just take another breath there. And we'll place the back knee down. You can pat it if you need to, and just sweep your arms straight up. We're going for vertical with the torso above that back thigh. Work on the balance. You got to work the balance with that front leg, right? Push into your right heel. Big inhale, big stretching up. Exhale, touch down. And we'll step it back. Downward facing dog, placing your hands carefully. Take your left knee into your chest. Step your left foot forward into a lunge. So just remembering that our practice is really about being in the moment right now. So cultivating that mind-body relationship that is soothing to the body, it's soothing to the mind to bring them together. Lift your right hip up a bit, right, just to back off there, but then try to scoop your left hip toward your left heel. Cultivating that awareness so that you have this dialogue that you can come back to. You can check in with yourself, to your breath, to your skin, to your organs. Where is the tension? Can I just be present? We'll place that back knee down. Lean back a little bit so you're more vertically up over that thigh. Take your arms up. Inhale. Big stretch. One more breath. And then we'll exhale, touch down. Step it all the way back. Downward facing dog. Slide forward to plank pose. Lower yourself all the way down. Point your toes straight back. Go ahead and interlace the hands behind the back. Curl the shoulders. Lift the shoulders. Lift the chest. Toes are mostly down. I'm trying to press my pelvis down as I lengthen through my legs. Lengthen out of those hip joints. And pull the abdominals in and up to support my low back. So I'm trying to get some space, some traction through that low back. Big inhale. And then exhale back down. So it's that energetic split again happening right there. Place your hands, tuck your toes, come to hands and knees. Little cat and cow. Sink the upper back. Inhale, look up, lift your head, lift your tail. Exhale to round. Inhale, look up. And exhale, round. Continue following your breath. You breathe in and out through your nose, do so. I think one of the hardest things for me about teaching a lot of yoga in the past is that I didn't have a lot of time to practice on my own. And not to mention that after you've taught 3 or 4 classes a day, like your desire to practice on your own after having sort of halfway done most of the poses, it's limited, right? It's like, oh man, the last thing I want to do is more yoga. But really the challenge is that when you're teaching, you don't get to coordinate your breath and movement. So I encourage you while you're practicing, and you don't have to talk, that you can really tune to your breath in and out through the nose. That is like the most soothing aspect of yoga. One more time, rounding, nice big exhale, and then back to neutral. And take your left palm face up. We're going to thread it all the way through. Big shoulder opener twist. Go onto your right fingertips. So what I found is over time, I really started to feel quite agitated by talking and practicing at the same time. And it started to make me sort of resent yoga. And so the taking a big break from teaching was really helpful because then I could get back into my own practice and find that connection of breath and body and sort of peaceful inner mind. You don't realize that when you're talking, you're kind of agitating your brain, There's this little scratch that's happening. Take a nice full breath here and exhale. And back to center. And then over to the second side. Right palm faces up. Twist. Come up on your left fingertips. But we're funny. Humans are funny. Like, ideally, we would practice in total silence. We wouldn't need to be guided. We would just do our own thing. But the reality is, a lot of us would then wander away into some, potentially quite dark places or perhaps quite distractible places in our brain. So having a teacher talk and keep reminding you, come back to your breath, come back to your body, come back to that sensation in the sides of your ribs right now. The sensation of that nice full breath. Good, and then we'll return to center. It can be helpful, right, to have this voice to keep guiding you. Reach your hands out, downward facing dog. But I also encourage you at times to try a little practice in silence. No music, no guided talking. Just see what happens. What does your body do when you're quiet? Come forward to plank pose, and we'll lower ourselves down. Point your toes straight back. Turn your heels in just slightly, right? And then that just allows you to access the leg muscles. Turn your palms face up. Now use those leg muscles, engage the back of the legs, push the pelvis down, lift your abdominals, lift your head and chest up. So if I have access to my outer hip muscles, I can stretch my legs away a bit. It's a little bit of a paradox because if I over access those butt muscles, I'm going to tighten my tailbone. So I still want my tailbone to be able to move and breathe. So find that and then exhale, release. And we'll come back again to downward facing dog. Tuck the toes, lift up and back. The other advantage of having a teacher is that I can point out things that your attention doesn't naturally go toward, right? Like the tension of your tailbone. How often do you think about that on your own, right? Okay, take your right leg up to the sky. This time we're going to open the hips, turn open, big wide stretch. And I always feel like my cat. He likes to roll over and expose his belly. It must feel good. And then draw that right knee in. We're squaring off the hip, step forward to a lunge again. This time we're going to come up to a crescent lunge. Stretch it all the way up, arms up to the sky. I think it would feel better to expose your belly if it was furry. The bare belly, when it's cold out, doesn't feel as lovely. Look up, curl up, push into your feet, hold your balance. Now we're going to place the left hand on the mat, right hand on the knee. Okay, so it's a very gentle twist to start. Back leg is straight and strong. Back heel is straight up and down. I'm nice and open between my stomach and my thigh. They're not really touching. I'm trying to pull my stomach away from my thigh even a little bit. Then I'm going to take that right arm up to the sky. Stretch it up. Big, wide open. Reaching across the collarbone. I'm going to turn my torso, turn my gaze. Big inhale. Exhale, touch down. Place the back knee down. Bring both hands to the inside of the right leg. Walk your right foot over to the right toes open to the right. You have the option here of staying up just like this, squared off, right? This is a hip opener for a lot of us. If your back knee is tender, you might point your back toes and see if that helps with the kneecap placement. So you have this option. You have the option of coming down on the inside of that leg. I like this because I'm able to send this right sit bone back. I'm trying to reach that right sit bone back and apart. Like I'm trying to widen it off to the right. And then if that is not very stretchy for you or not very sensation filled and you want some sensation, you could lean forward, right? Let that right knee fall a little more out to the right. Again, thinking of the sensation not as a goal toward getting somewhere, but as a release of tension, right? So it should feel good. The hip opening should feel good. For me, I have to be backed up here for it to actually really feel good. And I'm scooping that right hip toward my right heel. Otherwise, it just feels like I'm actually maybe creating more congestion in the hip. Here I have some space, I can breathe, I can move my hips. And then we'll place the hands and lift up and back. We're going to just briefly take that right leg up to the sky again to open up that right hip. Big full breath and place it back down. And it should feel good compared to the left side. Now take your left leg up, bend your knee. We're going to open the hips up again, rolling your belly up to the sky. Would it be nice if you had soft cat fur belly or dog fur belly? I always think I would like stripes. Big inhale. And then we'll turn off, square off the hips. Draw that left foot forward, stepping it into our lunge. Sweep your arms up. Crescent lunge. Back leg is straight-ish, right? It could be bent a little bit, especially if your low back is tight. But opening up the chest. Big stretch, working on your balance, pushing into that front heel. Shoulders soft. Inhale. And then we're going to take that right hand down, left hand to knee to start. So it's a nice open twist. I'm leaning off to my right onto that right hand. Right hand is almost to the edge of my mat. Scooping my stomach away from my thigh. So I'm not going into a back bend. I'm actually kind of filling my low back. And then once I've got that spine established, that axis, I'll take my left arm up to the sky. So the shoulders are stacked. I'm not taking my left arm back behind me. Now you can always try that and feel the tension it creates in the neck and shoulders. Stay firm around the axis, meaning a firm awareness, and move from there, rotating the whole spine, and then the arm just follows. And then we'll touch down, place the back knee down, so both hands are the inside of my left foot. Walk my left foot off to the left a little bit, turn the left toes out to the left a little bit, and then we're here at this hip opener. This is just the first part. Also interesting to note is that sometimes we don't need sensation to release tension. Sometimes just putting ourselves in an opening position and breathing into it is actually more spacious and more balancing. So that's something to notice for yourself, like holding this position where there's a lot of space around the spine, around the back of the pelvis, can be really lovely. If you want sensation, again, because especially stretching the hips, people really enjoy the sensation of stretching the hips. I would say it's the #1 request in yoga is hip openers. I think it feels good, right? We have tension in the hips and it feels like we're releasing tension when we stretch them. So you could come onto your forearms, but just check it out. Just notice, is this really more spacious and more enjoyable for you? And maybe it is. Maybe this feels great. So then you go for it, right? Maybe it's closing up the front of your hip joint in a way that actually isn't feeling great. And then you should back off, right? Or try leaning forward and see if that shifts things. So you want to find the position to hold where there's breath, where there's movement, where there's space. For me, I can feel the head of my thigh bones are still able to move when I'm up here, right? I can move left and right and front and back. There's movement in that hip joint where the thigh meets the pelvis. And then we'll place the hands and step back to downward facing dog. Slide, and you feel the openness on that left side. So let's take the left leg up just for a moment, open that back up, and place it back down. And then we'll slide forward to plank pose, lower ourselves down, all the way down. Keep your hands where they are, underneath your shoulders. Lift your shoulders. As you lift your shoulders, notice the corresponding tension in your low back that might have just happened. And instead, lift your low abdominal muscles to create some space and length in the low back. Keep that as you lift up to a low cobra. Shoulders back, head back, opening the collarbones, big full breath, and then articulating the spine back down. We're going to do that a few more times. Like you really are a cobra, lifting one vertebrae at a time, upper back, middle back, low back comes into it, but I'm supporting the low back. And then I'm going to articulate down from the pelvis, lengthening back down. So one part grounding through the legs, one part lifting through the spine. So I got to keep that groundedness through my legs as I curl up. and keep that groundedness in the legs as I articulate back down. We're gonna do it one more time. Extending out through the crown of the head, articulating the spine up, very light touch on the hands, and then maybe more as I come up, as long as I can keep the space in my low back, and then articulating back down, again, space in the low back. Tuck your toes, lift up and back, downward facing dog. This is our home base today. Make it a good one. The crease of the elbows, the inside of the elbows, just slightly pointing up toward the sky. Lean back so I could have my knees a little bit bent. Again, I don't want to be locked out in my knees or hips or ankles. There's breath, there's movement. So it's good to feel that movement. And we'll walk the feet forward to the hands. Bowing forward. Let your head go. Go ahead and hold your forearms. So hold your elbows. Sorry, cross your forearms. Let your head hang. If your arms don't hang close to your ears because your back is tight and you're up here, go ahead and bend your knees. Place your torso more on your thighs. Let your head go more. So that the point of this is that the arms are hanging sort of straight down from the shoulders. Recross the forearms. I'd like to have that movement of arms over shoulders every day. See, even though we're upside down here, the arms are above the shoulders. Let go of your hands, push into your feet, look halfway up or bring elbows to knees, sit your hips back and then come up to stand from there so we're not loading the low back. Okay, let's do some balancing poses and then some standing poses that will act as hip openers and then some hip openers on the mat. Okay, so balancing. We're going to start with not tree pose, but almost tree pose. So standing on your right leg, hold on to your left knee and balance like so. So I'm just holding on like that. Try to turn to show you, it's going to knock me over. Okay. So I got this energetic split of grounding from the core of the pelvis down, lifting up through the sides of my waist, the backs of the ribs. And we're going to take the knee out to the left. So hold on, do whatever you want with your right arm, and counterbalance if you like. And I'm still hugging in the side here, finding that orientation around my spine. Shoulders are soft, face is soft. Just opening the knee up. I'm going to take it back to center and cross it over to the right and use my right hand, left arm out to the left. So it's working those different planes of balance. You may not even notice, but your standing leg has to use different muscles depending on where your lifted leg is. You're just waking those up and then back to center and place that foot down. Okay, second side. This is a good intermediary to tree, right? People get sort of stuck on tree as a winning yoga pose. There are a lot of balancing poses. Tree is really accessible to some people and then like really, really challenging for some people. It doesn't really matter. It's not like, I'm going to burst some bubbles. It's not like in and of itself a super sacred pose. If you can't do it, you're still a good human. It was really accessible to Indians because they sat with their hips open quite often. Take your knee open to the side. But for us, we don't sit like that. So it's not the most accessible pose to us. And that is okay. Hug this outer hip in. What we really are interested in is working on balance. Working on balance. So we're going to cross back over to the left using your left hand. You can have that right arm off to the right. And again, you're using the slightly different muscles in your left leg. Like what I can tell today, for example, is my left leg is not firing as strong as my right leg was. So my balance on my left side is not as good. My outer hip is not firing quite the way I need it to for really steady balance. Back to center and place that leg down. So that's just good information. Like if I was going to go for a run later, I'm going to want to work a little bit on getting that left leg to fire for me. Okay, standing on your right leg, take your left leg up, and we will come into tree. Now look, you can stay holding on to your foot. If you have the flexibility, but your leg always springs open, then just hold your foot there, literally with your hand, hold it. And you can take that right arm out to your side. Okay. If you can't get it to stick because your tights are slidey, you can stay holding it. If it sticks, hug the legs together. We'll take the arms up. Hug in. So it's a gentle hip opener, tree pose. We're letting that thigh bone drop down and out. Working on balance. And then place that foot down, hands come down. Second side. Standing on your left leg, take that right leg up. Again, you could just hold your leg there and just work that action. Working on the knee fold, working on the hip opener part of it. You still have to do balance even if you're holding on with your hands. We'll take the arms up. So now I have that information from the previous balancing exercise that my left leg isn't firing as much. I'm trying to put my mind down on that part of the leg to get it to fire up the outer hip to help me with balance. And actually, since I'm paying attention to that, this side is now easier than the first side where I wasn't really paying attention and I fell over. Good. Place your foot down, hands to your sides. Okay. Side angle pose. Let's go nice wide stance. And we'll start on the right side. Turn your right toes to the front edge of your mat so they're lined up. Bend your knee so it's right in line with your toes, right over your ankle. Forearm to thigh. Walk your back leg far enough back that your front leg is at a right angle. Take that top arm over your ear. Ground into this bent knee hip. Okay, so that front hip is descending toward the front heel, while the left thigh is lifting and widening up and away. I've got a little opposition there, an energetic split. Both legs are grounding down through the heels, and both sides of my waist are lengthening, lifting. And then once I've got that orientation to the spine, I can rotate the whole thing, but not just the arm, right? I'm taking the whole spine and it's rotating my shoulder girdle because they're all connected. Nice big inhale. Exhale, push into your feet, and then inhale, come all the way up to stand. Turn your feet parallel. We'll do a forward bend here, hands to your hips, bowing forward, touch down. I think I do this little sequence in almost every class I teach because it's really a great hip opener. Inhale, look up, and exhale to bow. So here we're lengthening through those inner thighs. And we still have to keep the outer shin strong. So a lot of hip strength also comes from the lower legs, the outer shins, the inner thighs. So see if you can find that, those outer shins hugging in, those inner thighs hugging to the thigh bone. So you have one part hugging toward the midline, and the other part it appears to be hugging away from the midline, but it's really hugging to the thigh bones. Push into your feet. Inhale, lift halfway up. Exhale, hands to your hips. Use your leg muscles, come up strong. And then we'll turn the left foot to the left. Bend that knee, forearm to thigh. If you need to slide your back foot back a little bit, you can, or maybe you have to hop it in, that's fine too. Top arm comes across the ear. And now I've got my front hip trying to scoop toward my heel and my back hip trying to lift. So it's like I'm trying to broaden the pelvis, right? And then around that axis of the spine, I'm rotating. Nice wide pelvis. My shoulder girdle is just following the rotation of the rib cage. I'm not trying to turn the shoulders first. Keep your front knee in line with your toes. Don't let it drop in. You can use your elbow a little bit to steer it. Nice big inhale. Push into the ground. Come all the way up. Turn your feet parallel. Let's take the hands behind us, put the other pinky finger on the outside, curl your shoulders back, than you did on the very first forward bend we did like this, and then bow forward. If you can't remember which pinky finger goes on the outside, don't worry about it. Which one is more common for you? Reach your knuckles toward the sky, open the collarbones, lift your low stomach. So you're lifting up out of those hip joints. push into your feet, come all the way up to stand, and release. Okay, side angle into half moon pose. So we'll turn to our right again. Forearm to thigh. Left arm swings across the side of the body. Get into your side angle. I got to resist with that back inner thigh. Then I'm going to take my left hand to my hip, look out past my right toes, reach out with my right fingertips. I'm going to stay on my fingertips. If I have a yoga block, I could use it. That's one of the reasons we had a block in the beginning of class, is to use it right here. And lift that back leg up. My front foot, standing foot, is not going to pivot in. I'm going to keep it pointing straight forward, with my knee pointing straight forward. Left arm maybe comes up. Lift that back leg. Balancing. Don't worry about how you look. Don't worry. Place your back foot down. Come back through side angle. So be a little bit disciplined here. Bring your forearm to your knee, top arm over the ear, and then come out. Yes, it takes a little leg strength to do that. It's good to work on. And then we'll do the second side. Left knee pivots. I think I have to back up to stay in the camera. Bend your front knee. We'll do a nice full side angle here. So come right into it. Arm over ear, rotating. Draw those abdominal muscles back. They'll help you. They'll help you make the transition here. Push into your front heel. Hand to your waist, top hand to your waist. Look down. Keep your left toes pointing straight forward, left knee in line with toes. Reach out past your toes. Lift that back leg up. How high should the back leg be? It doesn't really matter. It's energetically where it lands, right? If I lift mine too high, it makes my low back tight. If I drop it down too low, it doesn't feel very interesting. So I kind of find that sweet spot, and then arm comes up. And feel the pose. Instead of trying to look at the pose as an outsider, feel from the inside the space you're taking up, the balance, the work. And then we're going to land carefully and come right into a real side angle. So line yourself up. You got to really move that back foot back. Forearm to knee again. Top arm over the ear. Yep, hold it. Make that leg work for you. And then come back up. So the good way to gain trust in your legs, turn your feet parallel again. Step back to the center. Okay, now into some hip openers on the ground. So this squat is really great. Squatting is a great hip opener. Squatting, rolling to sit is a great hip opener. So go ahead and take your block. This is really like a psychological aid, just so you know. So if you don't have a block, don't worry about it, just pretend. Hold your block out in front of you. Sit. Come down. Come all the way down. Rock back. Rock back up. See if you can come to a squat. Rock back. So you're just kind of working this action. Can I tip myself into a squat? The block, if I reach it forward, like I said, it's a psychological aid. If you have a 5-pound weight, you can do that. If you have a cat, I recommend holding that. Okay, so I'm keeping my knees wide as I come into my squat, trying to rock my weight forward. So do that one more time. Great hip opener. Right there, okay? Put your block down. Grab your strap, have it nearby anyway. And we're going to come onto our back and draw your knees into your chest, just like we did in the very beginning of class. Rest your head back. We got both knees into the chest. We're going to take our left hand to our low belly, our right arm overhead bent, and then we're going to start switching arms and legs. So we're going to, this takes a little coordination. We're going to tap the right heel, switch the hands. Lift that up and tap the left. So we're just going back and forth. I've got the opposite arm behind me of the leg that's tapping. The hand on the belly is the heel that's tapping. I'm just going back and forth. This is really just a cross crawl pattern. Once you get the hang of the coordination, one hand to belly, one hand behind you, see if you can get your low back down on the mat. Hold it there. Hold it steady. The point of adding the arms is you can't get too tight in your neck and shoulders. right? So you have to keep that connection from front ribs to low hips, back and forth. So let's see if you can soften your face, just back and forth, nice and easy, and rest. Okay, we're gonna do one more little abdominal activation exercise. Stretch your left leg long. Keep your left toes, I'm gonna block out of the way here, left toes, left knee straight up to the sky. Let your right knee go away from you enough that now your left leg is mostly on the ground. Bring your hands to your sides, palms face down, anchor the back of your arms. My knee is bent, my heel is nice and it's just dropping toward my hip. I'm not doing anything with my foot at all. I'm just gonna start making circles, first by going across to the left, and then, so I'm just doing, what is this? I can't even picture. I think this is clockwise circles. It doesn't matter. We're going to switch directions in a moment. But just doing nice, easy circles. But here's the thing. I'm moving the knee very freely, the leg very freely, but everything else is holding still. So I'm holding my pelvis really steady, trying not to let my pelvis move, trying not to let my abdominal muscles lift or my rib cage lift. Okay, so nice and easy in the neck and shoulders, and then reverse directions. We're trying to see, can I do full range of motion with the pelvis, with the knee, but hold the pelvis still. So that means the left side of the pelvis is holding steady. That's that psoas muscle I was talking about that crosses from the front of the body all the way to the back. We're just trying to get that to have proper function. Good, and then place that right leg down. And we'll draw the left knee into the chest. First, just hug it in. You can open up the right side there. Right toes, right kneecap up to the sky. And then let your knee go a bit until the left thigh is down on the mat, the left back of the left leg. Hands by your sides. Okay, heel dropping just nice and easy through the foot and the lower half of the leg. Front ribs knitting in. So can you get the whole spine from the rib cage down to the pelvis on the mat? And then start circling. Just nice, easy circles. Starting clockwise. The whole back of the right leg is trying not to move on the mat, trying to hold it still, trying to hold my pelvis still as I work that range of motion in my left leg. This nice freedom of movement there. And then switching directions. Again, trying to hold everything steady with that right psoas muscle where it attaches the right thigh up the inside of the pelvis to the back of the rib cage. That whole right psoas is just holding steady. It's not gripped, but it's working. It's nice and solid there. It's doing its job, activating. Last circle, and then stretch that left leg long. Okay. Okay. Now, before we go into our little calf stretch series, let's do this hip opener, and then we'll do it again at the end. Okay. So bending both knees, the eye of the needle, where we take the right ankle over the left knee, thread that right hand through, and hold on either to the back of the hamstring there or onto the shin. Resting. So again, noticing we don't need strong sensation. We can just rest in this pose. This is a great one for opening up the nostrils. Just one more breath. Just making a mental note of where the tension is or maybe isn't. And then we'll switch sides. Left ankle comes across, arms reach through. So we're using this one as a little bit of a comparison. We're going to do it again after, and I just want you to see where the tension is, like noticing right now the tension in the outer hip or in the inner thigh, or maybe you're having a hard time softening your front ribs, letting your upper back be heavy. Notice if your eyes are lifted up, can you let your eyes drop a little bit into the back plane? One more breath. And then let it go. Keep both feet on the floor here, knees are bent, take your strap, hook behind your right foot, and stretch your leg toward the ceiling. And then, keeping that right leg vertical, stretch your left leg toward the floor. Reach that left leg. See if you can open up again the top of that left hip. Reach through your right heel. Relax your shoulders. Reach through that heel. Reach through that heel. Reach strong. And then turn your toes open to the right. Take your leg off to the right. We're not going to worry about the left hip. It's going to lift up a little bit. Do what you like with your left hand. Sometimes I find it soothing to keep it on the belly to soften those front ribs. But I also like to stretch it long along my ear. So either one. Along the ear is a much more energetic pose, right? I'm really extending out, again, out of that focal point, right around between the navel and the pubic bone, extending the legs out nice and strong, and back up to center. And then we'll just come into the second side. So you bend that right leg, take your left leg up. One of the reasons to bend the left knee first while you straighten the left, bend the right leg, sorry, while you straighten the left leg, is to get more of a neutral pelvis. So here I have a neutral pelvis when I straighten my leg. Can I keep it that way? Meaning I'm not tucking my tail and I'm not arching my back. So keeping it neutral. The pubic bone is in line with my pelvic points here, those little crest of the pelvis. Really reach through your heel for a moment. Get that big stretch through the back of the leg, mobilizing your ankle. And then turn your toes out to the left. Let's take the left leg off to the left, holding on with your left hand. Again, you might just keep your right hand on the low ribs to soften your eyelids, soften your ribs. That's more restorative. Or if you want more an energetic pose, stretch your arm out. And how do you know if you want restorative or energetic, right? And this is part of our yoga practice, is you do one and then you feel the effects. A lot of times we're attracted to the thing we maybe don't need more of. I mean, I'm like a pretty energetic, almost slightly hyperactive person. Like I need a lot of things. I need to do a lot of things. And probably, honestly, I need to do a lot less and rest to balance. So like, I'll notice when I start getting out of balance, I start to feel anxious, pulled out of myself. I have this sense of like, oh, I can't do it all. But the best thing for me to do in those moments is to sit and meditate and rest and do restorative yoga. Come back up to center. But it's taken me years to trust that. Stretch your left leg long. And sometimes I have to get sick to believe it, right? Like my body forces me to rest. Okay, bending both knees. We're going to cross that right ankle over the left knee again. Interlace your hands, hold on to your shin. So get a nice, easy pose and just notice what feels different. For me, there's more sensation now in my low back, actually feels like it's getting stretched out. I didn't feel that before. My nostrils are more clear. My face is a little wider. And then we'll switch sides. Left ankle comes over. Maybe you don't feel any difference, and that is fine. It's really about the practice of paying attention. Like our meditation practice should not be earth-shattering. For the most part, it's a pretty mundane, the best use of the word boring. Meditation should be mostly pretty boring in a soothing, nourishing kind of way. Our yoga practice is not too different. And release. Okay, now rock yourself up. We're going to come into pigeon. So, coming on to hands and knees. Now, pigeon has a lot of variations. So some very accessible forms of pigeon, right? The most accessible is to just take the right knee forward, almost to the center of the mat, and your heel right to your groin. Okay, so that all we're really doing is folding over that front knee, working on that range of motion in the front knee. And that might be the thing you're working on. If you have a block, you could put it underneath your hip to get a little bit of the pressure off of the knee, right? I could even lift my block up like that. I could come way up here. I could sit my block even higher. And this could be the pigeon that I'm working on, right? So I just want to show that because I know some people doing this practice have limited knee mobility sometimes. Okay, so that's a nice way to do this, and I'm getting a big opening through the left hip. Okay, so let's say I can close my knee just fine. I could start to take my knee off to the right. Now, the more flexible you are, the more you do want to take your knee off to the right. You don't necessarily need to walk your shin forward to the front of the mat. That can be a little bit too much, but you can definitely widen your knee to the right. Hips are still level and you could come down. And again, this should be a pose of tension release. So not like we're trying to push the limits of anything, not like we're trying to crank the hips open with a can opener, um, but like, oh, it feels good to lengthen the backs of the legs. I can rest my head. It's a tension release. A nice, easy breath. You can even close your eyes. We'll take one more breath here. And then coming back up. And we'll just stretch through downward facing dog. So lifting that back leg up and opening the hip up, opening that leg up. Get some blood flow back in that joint. And then coming back onto hands and knees, taking that left foot forward, left knee forward. And again, just checking out the bend in the knee. So I could be way up here, right? I'm way up on my fingertips. I could use a block to come up. So that's another way to use the block to support yourself in pigeon. Then it turns into more of a front hip opener, and that's quite lovely too. I'm still going to try to square off my hips. Or I could have the block behind me in any of those heights, right? Just to support that left hip. Otherwise, I could start moving my left knee off to the left and my foot a little bit toward the front edge of the mat. My foot is not very far forward. Yours could be a little bit further forward as you bow forward. I like to be really careful in pigeon of my hip joints, that it really is truly an enjoyable sensation. There isn't a sense of impingement. There's still breath, there's still movement. I have gotten myself into a lot of trouble in the past with these external hip rotations. So like, if you think about it, your left thigh is externally rotated, the knee is off to the side. There's a lot of potential for running the thigh bone into the hip joint in a way that is not happy for that hip joint. You can tear the hip joint, you can cause some damage on the surface of that bone. So being really sensitive, like there's space. I can move in this pose left and right. I can breathe in it. My pelvis is able to move. It's a compromise because the release of tension is quite delightful, right? So hanging out here, it feels good. It does, but there's a limit to that. It's like we want it to continue to feel good. We want to be able to use this pose for years to come without it causing problems. So make sure you can breathe into the back of the pelvis, and then we'll come out and step back to downward facing dog and lifting that left leg up for a moment just to get some space there, and place it down and come on to hands and knees. And we're going to sit back on our heels. Again, you could sit on a block. We're going to do a twist. It can be, actually, you know what, let's do this in a friendly way for the knees. Take your legs straight out in front of us. Just knowing our knee audience will be nice to our knees. So legs straight out in front of you. Now bend your right leg, cross it over the left, and take your left hand to your knee, right hand behind you. So this is a really nice way to do a twist, and you get a little leverage this way too. And then I can broaden my collarbones, lift up through the crown of the head, pushing that sole of the foot down into the ground. Left kneecap, left toes are straight up and down. I'm pressing into my right hip as I turn. Nice full breath. Again, finding the axis of the spine and revolving around that. So I'm not forcing the shoulders. They're just following the turn of the ribs. Big inhale. Exhale. And then a little inhale back to center. So we keep that lift as we rotate. Right leg straight. Left knee bends. And we'll cross the left foot over. Right hand holds the knee. Left hand behind you. Now watch out. You have a lot of leverage here to turn, right? So we could like take the elbow to the knee, but the concern with that is we lose our sensitivity. So with the elbow bent and just the hand holding the knee, I can breathe and move into the pose more from the central axis and less from just sort of leveraging, prying myself. So watch that desire to kind of pry yourself open and breathe and fill the space instead, right? Fill the space of the back of the neck, up the back of the skull, soften your eyes, and with that nice filled space, rotate. Keep that inner space really bright and full. Big inhale. Exhale here, and then a little inhale back to center just to keep your length and coming back. Good. Okay, we're going to come onto our back. Final twist for Shavasana. Draw your knees into your chest, clear your space right around you. Elbows bend. Keeping your knees together, take them all the way to the right. So one knee stacks right on top of the left. You could even use your hand to hold your top knee there as you then let your left shoulder fall back. So just like we start class with the same few movements, or we have a limited variety of ways that we start class so that the body, mind has some familiarity to hold on to return home to. We finish the class with a familiar movement too, so that you're kind of signaling to your body, mind, it's time to rest. We're getting toward relaxation pose. Opening up the sides of the ribs, one big breath here. And then hugging your knees in toward each other. Keep them together as you come back up and over to the left. Again, stacking the hips, stacking the knees so we're not shearing the pelvis. You could use your left hand on that top knee to help. Sometimes I find it more relaxing to have the hand on the knee because then I don't have to hold with my hip muscles. I don't have to hold everything steady. Just kind of relax. The upper body can twist. The rib cage can twist more freely. Breathe into that right side, that right shoulder. Still breathing through your nose. Relax your eyes. And then back up to center, keeping the knees toward each other. We'll hug both the knees into the chest. And then getting ready for relaxation, the way to find neutral in the pelvis is we can just have the palms face down to start. Lift the hips up briefly, place them back down. Do that one more time. Lift up, place back down, kind of wiggle through the pelvis. And see if that doesn't feel both neutral side to side, but also tilting front to back, right? And sometimes I have to tilt to figure out where am I? Tilt my tail, tuck my pelvis back and forth. Okay, that's neutral. Then from neutral, maybe I can stretch my legs out and maintain neutral, but maybe not. So sometimes the front of the pelvis is too tight, the hip flexors are too tight, and we have to stay with bent knees. And that's fine too, or you could even use your block and put that underneath your knees, right? So keeping neutral that way. The nice thing about that, it actually allows the pelvis to open a little bit. So that's a potential Shavasana position, relaxation. Go ahead and find your position. Turn your palms face up. Draw the shoulder blades underneath. Close your eyes. We're just going to rest the head back, the brain into the back of the skull. All the parts of the brain, the 10 cranial nerves that feed all of your senses. Let those go by letting your eyes soften back. The bridge of the nose, the base of the tongue, and the hinge of the jaw. Let go of your ears, the sides of your neck, and the base of the skull. Soften the front of your throat down into your collarbones, the head of your arm bones, down through the elbows. Release your hands. Soften the space behind your heart. Let that broaden into the earth, heavy, wide. So the front ribs let go. No more need for expression. Can all fall away. Feel the wide front of your pelvis open, easy, flowing down into the tops of the thighs, thigh bones heavy on the earth. Nice and soft behind your knees, around your knees, ease and space. Down into your shins and the calf muscles. Like a river flowing easy through the ankles. Little pools of water in your heels flowing out to the soles of your feet. Soles of your feet are open. They can receive light and breath. Just feeling that light and breath so soft, washing in and out the length of your body like soft waves. And slowly gathering yourself up from those waves of breath, of light, space. And start to pull yourself back together. Nice and easy. Pulling tendrils back in. Gathering your attention. Even still, releasing any places of tension as you bring your presence back into your body. Notice how easy you can be. And slowly moving your fingers and toes, just re-enlivening. Stretch your arms overhead, big inhale. Exhale, soften again. And draw your knees into your chest. Roll to your side. Pause for a moment. Let yourself soften back into the earth. Keeping that heaviness through your legs, through your pelvis. You use your hands. Push yourself up. Any seated position. Bring your hands to your heart, to that midline, honoring one part grounding into the earth, one part rising to the sky. Your heart right in the middle. Your presence right here. Gratitude for this practice that allows you to bring it all into one place, into one moment. Body, breath, movement, your full presence. Thank you.